So my name is Bratton. I'm 27 years old. I was born and raised outside of Brady, Texas, where I was homeschooled on the family ranch until around the age of 12, where I started public school in junior high and high school, Brady High School. Then I went to University of Texas in Austin for a few years before I joined the U.S. Army as a JAG legal specialist, and with the intent to deploy to Iraq in 2004. I completed basic training that year. Completed the Judge Advocate General School that year, and by September 2005 I was in Iraq, did 1 year. When I returned from the military in 2007, I started University of Texas again in January of 2008, graduated end of 2009 with a bachelor's in anthropology, and I'm currently going to Texas State University pursuing a graduate degree in interdisciplinary studies. I've traveled almost 50 countries around the world. I love society and people, and what is good and bad about both. I think because I grew up homeschooled out on the family ranch, and we'd go to town, once a month for church kind of a thing, that society in general was kind of new to me. Started traveling international at 13, and just the idea that people are the same all over the world kind of, I don't know, I identified with that. In 2006, when I returned from Iraq, I was headed home out of Austin into the rental car for a short visit at home. My family, I hadn't seen the house and everything in a few years because I've been overseas with the military. And leaving Austin on a highway that I'd traveled for free for years, while I was gone in Iraq, it had been turned into a toll road. And I found out that that was by no means an isolated case, and that some of these toll road portions, public-private partnerships as they refer to them, were actually owned by, or rather were under contract with international corporations like Sintra in Spain, or Zachary, which I think is in Australia. And that just didn't sit well with me, that I'd spent a year in Iraq to come home to a proud state that had been selling its infrastructure to international corporations. Right, so during my last year at the University of Texas, it was also the 81st legislative session, so I got a neutral position as a Senate messenger just so I could watch the session and see if I could pick out who might be responsible for those types of activities. And I determined that pretty much every legislator, for the most part, was in one lobbyist or special interest group pocket or another, and that something had to be done in general, so that's why I'm running. Toll roads are the public face to, the public face to this international corporatist public-private, how do I say this? International corporations are buying out our state and federal governments through public-private partnerships, and it isn't to the best interest of the people. It never has been, never will. I've seen a number of different responses by Sid Miller on those questions. I've seen him oppose, I've seen him support, I've seen him oppose the government control of water districts, private water districts. I've seen his opinion change on so many issues. I don't know which one is fair to attack. Effectively, Sid Miller and I agreed a third of the time. The toll road aspect, the public-private partnership aspect in general, is just, again, a microcosm of this special interest and international corporate lobbying group agenda. And you can talk about it in the healthcare industry or health and human services in general, with the push for pharmaceutical and health insurance corporations and entities taking precedent over private or competing medical treatments, naturalistic, any of those alternative techniques, you name it, education, the centralization of anything into an individual administrative authority. It isn't a question of if it will become corrupt or turn in a direction counter to where it was intended. It's when, yeah, when you establish a position of power or authority, it's just a question of when someone or some people will promote themselves to that position and turn society in a direction that wasn't intended when it was established. And I hate to say this because I believe in liberty in a very real way, in a very organic way, but I do think that something has to be done, like the Glass-Steagall Act that was repealed in the past 5 or 6 years, I think. Well, actually, it might have been 8 years by now. Things, anti-monopoly type legislation. I would love to see these international corporations that have been around for over 80 or 90 years. It's time that they're dissolved. Corporations I don't think are intended for more than 2 or 5 years for a specific purpose, and we have these overarching supranational corporate entities that within what was the Supreme Court ruling in the past year that they can give unlimited campaign donations as an individual person without the responsibilities of an individual person. So something has to be done to establish that these aren't individual people and that they can't compete in that market without taking responsibility for their actions in that market. And I'd like to see anti-monopoly legislation. I'd like to see anti-international corporation and business legislation. And ultimately, in my daydream of international business economic daydreams, I'd like to see maybe even anti-interstate business and corporation property holding benches, so that you force a localism through competition. I know Americanisms are thrown around fairly liberally, but I think free market and capitalism are an Americanism, and we haven't really had that in about 97 or so years, or longer, when it comes to the corporate side of things. But that's ridiculous, and such a huge portion of that was immediately turned over to international banks like Deutsche Bank and Société Générale and all these, again, international banks. You can't argue that benefited the American people, one iota. I have heard people say for years that they just want somebody, I gotta say this right, they just want somebody that's decent and honest and doesn't play politics and doesn't take big corporate or dirty money, that doesn't stay in for 20, 30 years. That's why I'm only pledging, promising, swearing to never serve in one office for more than 2 terms. So in all likelihood, if I'm so privileged as to be elected, won't serve more than 10 years before it's just, I'm done. I guess I'm doing it as an exercise to see if people really want what they say they want. Unless you're a corporate or financial institution CEO or major stockholder, I wouldn't say you have a particular interest in Sid Miller. I don't know what he offers your average citizen, and I'm not claiming that I'm going to offer the average citizen anything, but that I intend to alleviate their burden as much, if not entirely, if I can. Anybody that knows me knows I don't and won't mess with, again, corporations or special interest groups. If there's someone from District 59 who is a member of a lobbying or special interest group, or supports a lobbying or special interest group, if they come to me as an individual from District 59, as a constituent, as a citizen, then that's how I'll communicate with people. I don't do mediums. Those entities don't vote, and apparently they don't take responsibility for themselves in the business community.